A vast alien palace stretched across crystalline cliffs, bathed in bioluminescent light that shimmered like liquid stars over the jagged surfaces. The structure was impossibly tall, with spires piercing the violet-tinted sky and bridges of translucent material suspended over glowing chasms below. Every corridor echoed with whispers of royalty, duty, and fear, the legacy of millennia compressed into every polished surface, every patterned tile. Shadows danced along walls lined with alien glyphs, their meaning lost to all but the most learned of the Queen's scholars. Yet for all its grandeur, the palace felt tense, almost alive, as if the stones themselves were aware that something extraordinary was about to unfold. Human engineer Kale Wren had been brought here not as a guest, nor as a diplomat, but as something altogether rarer. A consultant, a human whose understanding of alien technology surpassed even the most elite engineers of the realm. The Queen had approved his presence reluctantly, wary of outsiders but desperate. Kale's reputation had traveled across star systems. A human who could decipher alien neural networks, repair interdimensional energy conduits, and operate machinery so complex that even veteran alien engineers bowed in awe. And now he stood at the threshold of the most delicate assignment of his career, restoring life to the Queen's paralyzed daughter, Princess Lyra. The royal chambers were a study in contrast. Grandiose architecture met clinical precision. Smooth, crystalline walls glowed faintly with their own energy, yet in the center floated a medical cradle humming softly, wires and neural conduits stretching from the device to the princess's body. Princess Lyra sat in the cradle, immobile. Her once vibrant eyes, which had reflected curiosity, mischief, and life itself, were now dulled by years of pain and confinement. Each feature spoke of time trapped in stasis. Her delicate hands rested lifelessly in her lap, fingers curled as if holding invisible weight, and the faint quiver of her shoulders suggested the struggle beneath the surface of stillness. Queen Solara hovered nearby, a vision of regal authority and concern intertwined. Her crown gleamed, its facets catching and refracting the soft chamber light, yet her face betrayed nothing of triumph, only tension and worry. She had tried everything: ancient alien therapies, advanced neural stimulators, experimental biomechanical enhancements. None had succeeded. Each failure had left an imprint on her expression, tightening her jaw, narrowing her eyes, and deepening the lines of worry on her face. She watched Kale carefully, measuring his intentions and capabilities, silently weighing hope against skepticism. Kale's footsteps were deliberate and quiet, a human rhythm that seemed almost foreign in the alien space. He approached the cradle, pausing a few meters away, studying the interface and the princess simultaneously. His eyes flicked over the complex network of conduits, analyzing power flow, neural feedback loops, and mechanical alignment. The cradle's floating mechanisms glimmered as they adjusted micro-movements in response to Lyra's faint muscular spasms. "I might have an idea," Kale said softly, his voice calm but confident. It carried a weight that only someone certain of their skills could manage, a subtle mix of reassurance and authority. Queen Solara's eyes narrowed. She tilted her head slightly, examining him with a practiced gaze honed over years of ruling. Hope flickered briefly across her face, quickly replaced by doubt. "A human," she whispered, as if merely saying the word aloud could undermine the gravity of the situation. Her tone was a careful blend of curiosity, suspicion, and restrained longing. "Do you truly understand what is required here? This is not merely engineering, this is life." Kale nodded slightly. "I understand enough to try," he said. "And what I propose is minimally invasive precise. I need access to the central neural interface, full control for a short window. After that, Lyra will begin to respond." The Queen's lips pressed into a thin line. She paused, measuring the risk, the promise, and the desperate hope intertwined. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, she inclined her head. "Very well," she said, "but know this. If anything happens to her—" Kale raised a hand gently, halting her before she could finish the threat or warning. "I will not fail," he promised. The princess's eyes, dull but attentive, flicked toward him. A tiny spark of recognition, maybe hope, shone there. Kale could sense her curiosity, the unspoken question in those eyes. Can this human really do what others could not? Kale moved closer, his hands hovering over the interface, studying the alignment of alien conduits with his own human modifications. Sparks of unfamiliar energy danced along the cradle's frame as he began to implement adjustments, rerouting feedback loops, synchronizing neural impulses, and subtly integrating his own human-designed interface protocols with the alien system. The room filled with a quiet hum that grew steadily into a resonance that could almost be felt in the bones, vibrating through the crystalline walls. Queen Celara remained at a careful distance, her eyes fixed on her daughter and the human at work. She felt the hum, the strange energy, the tension in the air, and dared to hope. The princess twitched slightly, a tiny movement barely noticeable. Celara's breath caught, and she leaned forward, clutching the edge of a console. Kale's voice broke the silence. "There, microstimulation adjusted. Now observe carefully." Lyra's fingers twitched again, more pronounced this time. Her eyelids fluttered, and a faint shiver ran down her shoulders. The cradle compensated, stabilizing her movements, but the essence of life, of motion, was returning to her. Celara's eyes widened. She stepped closer, disbelief and awe warring with cautious optimism. "Could it be?" she murmured. Kale's hands moved quickly, making minute calibrations, guiding the interface in harmony with her body's subtle feedback. The first voluntary movement came next. Lyra lifted a finger. Just one, but enough to elicit a gasp from the queen. Kale's voice remained calm. "Patience, one step at a time." Another twitch, then a small bend of her wrist. Celara's hands trembled as she reached out instinctively. Kale's interface compensated instantly, stabilizing her balance. "She's responding," he said. The princess's eyes widened further, brighter now, reflecting astonishment and dawning hope. The chamber seemed to hold its breath, the grand palace, the silent corridors, even the glowing walls, as life began to return to Lyra. Kale's confidence did not waver. He had come to this alien palace as an outsider, but now, quietly, methodically, he was rewriting what was thought impossible. He adjusted the final feedback link. "Now, Princess Lyra, try to move your foot." The cradle shifted slightly, providing support, and then a small, tentative step. Celara's breath caught in her throat. A queen, known across star systems for her poise and authority, stumbled back slightly as if the universe itself had shifted. The impossible had begun. Kale stepped back, watching carefully, hands ready but calm, allowing Lyra to reclaim motion she had not felt in years. The first spark of hope had ignited in the alien royal chambers. A human had begun a miracle. The chamber was silent except for the soft hum of the cradle and the subtle flicker of bioluminescent light reflecting off the crystalline walls. Princess Lyra's finger twitched again, then another movement, a bend of her wrist, a lift of her toes. Each motion was hesitant, almost fragile, yet it carried with it the weight of years lost. Queen Celara's breath caught in her throat. She leaned closer, eyes wide, unable to tear them from her daughter. "Kale, is this?" Her voice trembled, a queen unaccustomed to showing vulnerability. Kale's hands hovered over the interface, ready to adjust, compensate, and guide. "She's finding her neural pathways again, small, controlled motions first. We build from there." Lyra's legs quivered. The cradle's supports hummed softly, assisting her as if the machine itself understood the delicacy of the moment. And then, with a faint push against the cradle's stabilizers, Lyra raised one foot. A tentative wobbling motion, but unmistakably intentional. The queen's hands flew to her mouth. Her crown, heavy and jeweled, suddenly felt like a burden she could not bear. Slowly, almost unconsciously, it slipped from her head and tumbled to the floor with a metallic clink. The sound echoed in the chamber, yet seemed strangely triumphant, a symbolic shedding of the weight she had carried for years. Lyra's eyes sparkled with astonishment and joy. I moved," she whispered, her voice weak but laced with hope. Kale nodded encouragingly. "One step at a time, focus on your balance." She tried again, pushing lightly against the cradle's supports. This time her legs held for a full second, then another. The queen stepped closer, tears streaking down her face, the mask of royal composure utterly broken. She extended a hand, unsure if she should help or let her daughter rise on her own. "Mom, I think I can do it," Lyra murmured, her voice gaining strength. Celara's fingers trembled as she hovered nearby, finally letting her hands rest lightly on her daughter's shoulders, ready to catch her if she faltered. Every inch Lyra gained in motion, every flicker of control, was a victory over years of fear, confinement, and despair. Kale adjusted the neural interface, guiding Lyra's motor functions subtly, but the movements were hers, her muscles learning, her nervous system reawakening. "That's it, just like that," he whispered. "Keep going." Lyra's second step was unsteady but deliberate. She laughed softly, the sound like wind chimes in the vast chamber. The queen's own gasp of disbelief turned to joy, and she allowed herself to kneel slightly, as if to meet her daughter's first steps on equal ground. "You," You're walking. Celara's voice broke into a sob of relief. Her hands gripped Lyra's, grounding her yet allowing her independence. After all these years, my daughter is walking. Cale took a step back, observing. His calm demeanor never faltered, but inside pride swelled. He had come as a human outsider to this alien palace. And now, through careful understanding, ingenuity, and a little faith, he had helped achieve what no alien scientist had been able to accomplish. Lyra took another step, then another, gradually moving away from the cradle with the queen supporting lightly. Her smile was radiant, unrestrained. Celara's eyes glistened with tears of disbelief and joy. For the first time in years, the chamber felt alive, not with humming machinery, but with hope, laughter, and a reclaimed sense of life. The crown lay on the floor, forgotten for now, a symbol of authority and duty set aside in awe of something far greater, the miracle of movement, restored by an unexpected hand. Cale watched silently, letting the moment breathe. A human in an alien world, bridging the gap between technology and biology, possibility and reality. He could almost feel the centuries of palace tension lift from the walls as Lyra's laughter rang out, a sound the queen had feared she would never hear again. Celara's gaze shifted to Cale, gratitude and astonishment mingling with her regal pride. A human has done what we could not, what centuries of knowledge could not achieve. Her voice trailed off, a mixture of awe and respect. Lyra paused, looked at Cale with bright eyes. Thank you for helping me walk again. Cale allowed himself the faintest smile. You did all the work, I just guided the path. The queen moved forward, finally retrieving the fallen crown, but her eyes remained on her daughter. For the first time, Celara realized that life and love could outweigh protocol and tradition. And somewhere deep inside, a spark of humility and wonder took root. In that bioluminescent chamber, amidst floating machinery and alien walls, history was quietly rewritten. A human, through skill and courage, had returned motion to a princess, hope to a queen, and set in motion a change that would ripple through the palace and beyond. The chamber, for the first time in years, felt alive. The chamber's glow reflected off the crystalline walls, bathing Princess Lyra in soft, ethereal light. Her steps were no longer tentative twitches. Each movement carried intention. With Cale guiding subtly through the neural interface, she lifted one foot, then the other, letting the cradle's supports float lightly beneath her as a safety net rather than a restraint. Queen Celara hovered close, her jeweled crown gleaming, yet it no longer seemed to weigh her down. Her hands trembled as she reached toward her daughter, ready to catch her if needed, yet restraining herself to allow Lyra's independence. Years of fear, helplessness, and desperation hung in the air, now pierced by the simple miracle of motion. Cale's hands hovered above the interface, making delicate adjustments. "Keep your balance, princess. Trust yourself," he said. His voice was calm, yet carried a quiet authority that steadied the room. Lyra's eyes sparkled brighter than ever. I can do it," she exclaimed. Her voice, once weak and uncertain, now resonated with excitement. Step by step, she moved forward, the cradle's supports retracting gradually, giving her more freedom. The queen's lips parted, and her eyes widened as disbelief washed over her. "Impossible after all these years," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. She leaned forward, forgetting protocol, forgetting composure, utterly captivated by her daughter's transformation. One small step led to another. Lyra laughed softly, a sound like chimes echoing through the vast chamber, and took a few more careful strides. Each step was met with Cale's encouragement, guiding her neural pathways and muscles back into coordination. The princess was walking, she was moving, she was alive. Celara's hands shook as she reached out, gripping her daughter's shoulders. "Lyra, you're walking." The words were choked with awe and relief. Her crown, which had slipped to the floor during the first movement, now seemed irrelevant, a heavy symbol of authority replaced by the miracle of life. Lyra looked up at Cale, her face radiant. "Thank you for helping me walk again," she said, eyes wide with gratitude and wonder. Cale allowed himself a faint smile. "You did all the work, I just guided the path." The queen's gaze, intense and unwavering, finally shifted fully to Cale. "A human has accomplished what we could not," she murmured. "What centuries of our science could not achieve, you have done." Lyra's confidence grew with each step. Soon she was walking without relying on the cradle, her movements fluid, almost natural. The palace chamber, once cold and sterile, seemed to pulse with newfound warmth. Light shimmered across the walls, reflecting the joy, relief, and astonishment that hung in the air. Celara moved forward to reclaim her crown, but her attention remained on her daughter. She realized that no symbol of authority, no artifact of power, could replace the human ingenuity and courage that had restored her child's life. In that moment, a queen humbled herself before both human skill and the resilience of her daughter. Lyra twirled once, balancing perfectly, her laughter filling the space. The cradle retracted fully, floating aside as a silent witness to the miracle it had helped facilitate. The room, the palace, even the distant corridors seemed to exhale, as if acknowledging the impossible had been achieved. Cale watched silently, his presence steady and composed. He had entered this alien world as an outsider, yet here in the heart of the royal chambers, he had become a catalyst for change, a bridge between human skill and alien tradition. Celera finally replaced her crown on her head, but differently this time, lighter, symbolic, a reminder that authority could coexist with humility, and that miracles sometimes arrived from the most unexpected places. She approached Cale, eyes glistening. "You've earned your place in our history, human," she said softly. "By giving my daughter her life back, you've given all of us hope again." Cale inclined his head, a gesture of modest acknowledgement. "I only did what anyone should when given the chance," he replied. Lyra ran to her mother, embracing her tightly, the bond of parent and child stronger than ever. Celera held her daughter close, whispering words of relief and love, while her eyes flicked to Cale, a silent recognition of the human who had altered the course of their lives forever. Outside the chamber, the palace seemed to shimmer with life, its corridors reflecting the laughter, hope, and renewed vitality of a daughter walking for the first time in years. The hum of alien machinery blended with the rhythm of human ingenuity, marking a new chapter in the palace's history. Cale stepped back, allowing mother and daughter their reunion. A human among aliens, he had not only restored movement, but also rekindled the joy and unity of a royal family long overshadowed by despair. The chamber was alive, not with technology alone, but with life, gratitude, and the quiet triumph of the impossible. For the first time in years, the princess walked freely. And for the queen, the human who had wrought this miracle became a symbol of hope, ingenuity, and the unexpected possibilities that arise when worlds collide. By the next hour, Princess Lyra's movements had grown more confident. The cradle now hovered silently aside, a relic of the struggle that had brought her back to life. Each step she took was deliberate, measured, yet full of fluidity, proof that her nervous system was relearning control. That years of paralysis were finally yielding to determination and Cale's careful guidance. The chamber, vast and bioluminescent, seemed almost to breathe with her steps. The walls reflected the soft glow off her movements, amplifying the miracle unfolding within. Every flicker of light caught in the crystalline architecture mirrored the astonishment in the eyes of those watching. Queen Celera, normally composed and regal, could hardly look away. Her hands, trembling slightly, rested on her daughter's shoulders, steadying her just enough but never constraining. "Mother, I can move," Lyra whispered, a small, triumphant smile curling her lips. Her voice, once fragile and uncertain, now carried strength and wonder. Celera's lips parted in disbelief. "By the stars, you're walking," she breathed, the words catching in her throat. For the first time in years, the queen's posture softened. Her crown gleamed in the chamber light, yet the weight of authority seemed to lift as awe replaced fear. Cale stepped aside, monitoring the interface one last time. His presence was quiet, yet commanding, a calm anchor amidst the tidal wave of emotion. He knew the delicate balance of control was no longer needed. Lyra's body had begun to take over. "Keep your balance, princess," he said softly. "Each step is yours now." Lyra took 2 more strides without assistance. The queen gasped audibly, the sound echoing off the crystalline walls. Then another, then another. Soon, she was walking confidently across the chamber, laughter spilling from her lips like a melody that had been silenced for too long. Celera's eyes glistened with tears. She moved closer, hands shaking, but this time to embrace her daughter fully. The bond between them, strained by years of helplessness and worry, now pulsed with renewed life. "Lyra, my daughter, after all these years," the queen whispered, voice breaking. Her crown, once a rigid symbol of power, now seemed almost ceremonial, a mere adornment in the face of the miracle unfolding. From the chamber entrance, palace staff and attendants began to gather, drawn by the commotion and the soft glow of the bioluminescent walls. They watched in stunned silence as the princess, once immobilized, now walked on her own. Some knelt instinctively, others whispered prayers of awe. The impossible had been achieved, and the human who had made it possible, Cale Wren, stood quietly among them, observing the wonder without claim, without fanfare. Lyra, feeling the joy of her regained mobility, twirled once, then another, her laughter growing louder. The chamber, filled with crystalline light and soft humming from the cradle's now-idle mechanisms, seemed to pulse in resonance with her newfound freedom. Solara finally bent to retrieve her crown, placing it back upon her head with deliberate care. Her eyes, however, never left Kale. "A human has given my daughter her life back," she said softly, awe and gratitude lacing her voice. "You have changed everything." Kale inclined his head, a humble acknowledgement. "I only guided the path. She did all the work herself," he replied, voice calm yet carrying the weight of accomplishment. The queen's hands remained lightly on Lyra's shoulders, feeling the strength in her movements. "Hope, we dared not dream of it, has returned," Solara whispered. Her gaze met Kale's once more, respect shining through the residual disbelief. "You've done what none of my advisors, none of our finest minds could accomplish. And for that, you have my gratitude." Lyra walked to her mother, embracing her fully, the bond now renewed and unshakable. The court, witnessing this miracle, erupted in hushed murmurs of awe. The hall that had once echoed only with protocol and fear now hummed with laughter, movement, and the quiet triumph of life restored. Kale stepped back, letting the moment exist fully between mother and daughter. A human, once an outsider, had bridged the gap between alien science and human ingenuity. He had rewritten what was thought impossible, and in doing so had reshaped not only the princess's life, but the very heart of the palace. Outside, the bioluminescent cliffs shimmered as if in celebration. The stars above reflected in the crystalline surfaces of the palace, echoing the first real light of joy that had touched these chambers in decades. A human had entered their world, and through skill, patience, and courage had sparked a miracle, one that would be remembered across generations. For the queen, the princess, and the palace itself, the impossible had become reality. And for Kale Wren, the human who had made it possible, the quiet satisfaction of having changed the course of a life, and an entire royal legacy was reward enough. Royal legacy was reward enough.